All right, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good Friday so far. We are back again with a modding tutorial. I thought that today we're going to do an upgradable item, and it's funny because we actually have two upgradable items proposed, one of which the poster actually went back yesterday, saw that we were about to get to his items, and basically completely changed the darts that he wanted, and there's no longer an upgradable dart. So fortunately, we have another item that is still upgradable that we're going to tackle in our first as the first part of the stream today. I did want to revisit the brush item from yesterday. It occurred to me that we did all the spell state work and we did all that stuff, but we never. One of the nice things you should do is that if the mod is going to do something that the user may not expect, in this case, if there's not enough spell states to actually install the item, we should at least warn the user that the item's not going to be installed. So before we get to dialogues and learn about how all those things work, I did want to revisit this. So essentially, if you can't find 4 open spell sites to install this item, then I wanted to provide a user. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this existing action if, and we're just going to add an in else begin. So basically, if there are 4 open states, do the 4 states, and then later on it'll install the item. But if it doesn't, then what we want to do is we want to print a message to them, and then we'll end that. So because this is going to be a message from the installer, we're going to drop it in the whydo tray file instead of the other one. And we're going to, let me grab what is the name of the item again? The formal name. The Realm Shaper's Brush. Okay. We're just going to do the Realm Shaper's Brush cannot be installed. Not enough spell states available. And so essentially this is, as the installer goes, this will pop up as a message as it installs. Now we might want to, actually, no, let me take that back. We're going to do this slightly differently. We're going to leave this as it is. And we're going to put this message at the end so that it will show up at the very end. All right, and instead we're going to make an action if. Basically, if this is the last one to get set. So we can trust if this one doesn't get set, then the item won't be installed. And we'll do a print at 3. Now, we have a couple options here. Print is basically your way to just have something appear in the installer. We could also go with warn. And there's also fail. Now, the difference between the 3, print is just you're giving a message to the user, right? You'll see this oftentimes, I'll use these in tweaks where before I do a big, like, regular expression copy, I did not test the item yesterday. So print is basically I'm giving information to the user, and I'll use these, for example, in Tweaks Anthology before doing a big copy. I'll be like, this step may take a few moments, so that they have a warning that, Whydo's going to be busy for a bit. Warn is basically if you use warn and it gets executed, the mod will automatically install with warnings. And so you've all seen this before where you install something and then at the end it will say it installed but with warnings. So this is, we could use a warning here. I don't think this rises to the point where we need like a formal warning. And then fail is something, fail will halt the installation. So if you use fail, it'll display this message and then it won't install the component, right? Any work that it does, it's just like when Whydo hits a critical failure, this will stop the installation. It will roll back any changes that is made to that point. In this case, I think this is just a simple message for players that this item did not get installed. So, excuse me, I'm a little sniffly this morning. I apologize. So this is one of those nice things I was thinking about later, that this would be a nice warning to at least let players know that, for in case there's no spell states, that the item didn't get warn changes to execute. Yeah, and that's another thing, right? I mean, it's this item not being installed is not the end of the world, right? We can it's not something worth a formal warning about. So, all right, so we're just gonna give a feedback message. So that was pretty much all I wanted to revisit from yesterday. Unless you guys have any questions, I think we're gonna go ahead and talk about dialogues and how they work in the game. So let's pop over to Near Infinity. And so I thought that we would use first, let's just kind of look at a dialogue and how in general they work. And so NPC dialogues get a little complicated, so I wanted to start with something a little simpler. So I thought we'd look at Rival Barterman. Since we're doing a merchant mod, we can start with a merchant's dialogue. So dialogues are assigned in the creature file. In this case, it's the very sensibly named ribald.dlg. And we're going to take a look at it in the view first. So dialogues are composed of states, and each state is a line of dialogue. So, for example, we're looking at his state 0. He's got a line of dialogue that comes from the string reference. In this case, the state has a trigger. Not every state has a trigger, but this one does. And then down below, these are all of the transitions or replies off of the dialogue. So in this case, there are 8. It counts from 0, so it's not 1 through 7, it's 0 through 7. And we've got player replies, and you can see some of them are conditional. You can put triggers on a reply. So basically this reply would only be made available to the player if this condition is fulfilled. And you can see, like, these are the quest related, right? I need to send Solemnic Knights back to their plane, right? This is the planar sphere quest. And there are conditions to get this reply to appear. So this, the first time you talk to them, obviously this is not going to be true. So this reply wouldn't show up. And then if you're coming back to them, if you've already talked to them. And then I was wondering if I could ask you a couple questions. Now, in party slot, last talked to by means that this is the PC. Like, you'll only get this if you're talking with him with the PC. So, and then each one of these, if you were to, in Near Infinity using select, it acts as if the PC selected this option. So you'd hit select and it would take you to state 3. He would say this. There's no PC replies here. This is just this is a state that just has one transition. So he would say this, and then notice how the select is dark. So this is basically this would end the dialogue. So there's only one transition out. It doesn't go to another state. It just ends. So, or you can go to, I'd like to see what's available. So if we're in the beginning of the game and the chapter is less than chapter 6, he says music for ears, there's customer born every minute. Again, there's only one reply, and it takes you to the store interface. Basically, he starts the store. And again, this ends the dialogue. So what we want to take away from this is every line of dialogue is a state. Every state can have multiple replies. The replies themselves can be conditional. And there are 2 types of replies here, right? There's the, hold on, let's go back. You have PC replies, and then you also have replies that don't have a PC reply at all. And the replies themselves are processed in a special fashion. They're processed from the last reply to the first. So and then PC replies are only presented if none of the hard transitions, if none of the non-reply transitions are true. So if we were to add a transition to this that didn't have a PC reply, it would take precedence over every one of these PC reply options. The PC only gets to reply if none of the other transitions are available. And that catches a lot of people out because, again, it's evaluated from the bottom up. So the last reply gets evaluated first. And so you can short circuit PC replies just by adding a transition that doesn't have a reply. So that's kind of your big takeaway from these. And then the PC replies only appear if none of the non-reply options are true. And then for states, so you'll notice, this has a true condition, but like this does not. So the big thing about state triggers is that, if you walk into the Adventurer's Mart and you click on Ribald, he will only start the dialogue with a dialogue state that's true. Like this would never be his first line of the dialogue because it doesn't have a condition. This one can be. It's just got a simple true on it. So Near Infinity has a nice thing with the tree where you can see these are his 3 dialogue states that have an actual condition. So these are the only 3 places when you walk up and talk to him, it's going to be one of these 3 lines. So you can see state 0 is here with its true. He's got another one where if you talk to him and Mazzy is in the party and available for dialogue. And then he's also got one for Jaheira. So we can check these out real quick. So if we go out to state 20. So basically if Mazzy's in the party, there's only one transition and it's going to set a variable so that this interaction with Mazzy only happens once. So you click on this and now, Near Infinity is, all right, this is actually Mazzy's dialogue. I don't know why it's still showing Ribald at the top, but you can see the state numbers have changed. So Mazzy's delivering a line here. She says, Ribald, is that really you? This, because it's Mazzy's line, it's in Mazzy's dialogue. So the other thing is that dialogues, as various people speak, it will jump between dialogue. So anytime, you have a conversation where there are multiple people talking and they all have lines or interjections or whatever, it's linking between dialogues. So in this case, we're jumping over to Mazzy's dialogue. Again, the player has no agency here. Mazzy gives her line. Ribald replies. And then another Mazzy line. And again, right, they're just talking. The PC doesn't get to do anything here. And then back to Ribald. And we continue on. And then basically Mazzy delivers her last line and the conversation ends. And so we can go back to, and then Jaheira has something similar starting at state 24. So again, it's got the guard to make sure this only happens once. It goes over to Jaheira's dialogue. And again, up top, this should be updating. I don't know why it is, but you can see the state numbers have changed. We're in Jaheira's dialogue file. And they go back and forth for a while. Again, no responses available to the PC. They just go back, talk for a bit. And then in Jaheira's, it basically drops you back to state 0. So even though this is a top level, this is how you can open your dialogue with him if you just go and talk to him. Jaheira's dialogue puts you here. So just because you have a condition on a state doesn't mean you can't just use it in a regular dialogue. So like I said, there's a special, Mazzy's in the party. There's a special Jaheira in the party. Both of these have a variable, so they only happen once. And then after that, because this is always true, this is always going to be an entry point for dialogues. If you don't have Mazzy, you don't have Jaheira, you're always going to get this line. After Mazzy and Jaheira have their one lines, you're always going to have this as your entry point. So that's kind of your states and your transitions. Now, let's take a quick look at what this looks like in actual decode. So we're going to use ydo at the command line, should just decompile it. And then let's go find that file. All right, so let's look at what this looks like in decode. One other thing I want to mention about states. Let's go back to the dialogue. So Ribald has basically 3 places where you can start dialogue with them. Normally, these are ordered in the order that they appear in the dialogue. So state 0 being the low number should be the number one highest weighted thing here. So basically, it when it looks for a valid dialogue to check, this is presented in the order that the game looks for them. So first it'll see if Massey's in the party, and if this is true. If it's not, then it will check to see if Jahira's in the party, and there's dialogue to have with Jahira. And then only if these aren't true, we'll come here and say, oh, this is true, so we'll use this dialogue. Now, normally these are just the order that they appear in the dialogue file itself. Like normally this should be 0, then 20, then 24. However, this dialogue uses weights. So this is state 0. It's weighted as 2 weight. And if we come down here to 20 and 24, you'll see 20 is weighted with weight 1. Or sorry, 24 has a weight 1. And the Mazzy interaction at state 20 is weighted with 0. So this is a way that you can force a later dialogue state to take precedence over an earlier by using weight. If you don't use weights, it'll just be, again, in the order that they're presented in the dialogue file itself. But so we can take a quick look at what an actual state of dialogue looks like. So basically it's like an if then. So you've got if, you've got a wait. This is a little why do warning telling you how weights work. Here's the condition. The condition is just true. Then we're going to begin state 0. Now, when we make our own decode, we can name our states whatever they want. Because we're decompiling this from an existing state, why do just assigns numbers. But there's no reason why this couldn't be, we could name this Ribald Initiation. The only thing that's tricky about that is that anything that wants to transition to this state needs to use the same name. All right, so if this is true, then begin the state name. In this case, it's 0. We're going to say a line, in which case, Ribald Barterman at your service. And then we have a block of transitions. So in this case, like the first transition is just a simple if then, here's the reply. And if I take that reply, we're going to go to state 1. There's no condition, so this reply will always be available. The second one, you'll notice that these two are basically a paired reply. So if we're in global less than, so if we're in chapters 1 through 5, this one becomes available and we go to state 2. If we're in chapter 6 or 7, we instead go to state 47. And for Ribald specifically, this is done because he has the special stash that he makes available to you after the Underdark. So, but these two replies are mutually exclusive because of how these triggers are structured, right? This one can't be true if this one is true. So these are set up to be the antithesis of one another. And then just a couple of other unconditional replies that take you to elsewhere in the dialogue. And then a couple of the Solambic Night replies, which these are all part of their, like these variables get set as part of their quest. And then these are the making sure that the knights themselves aren't already dead. And then that will take you to Ribald's quest related stuff for them. And then finally, if it's the PC, I have some questions I want to ask you, and that'll take you to 37. And so I want to revisit the Mazzy one. So in this case, right, Mazzy says hello. He pauses. We're doing a do. So this basically performs this action, in which case we're going to set this global so that this cannot repeat. And in this case, it's not a go-to. We're externing to Mazzy J. So this means we're going to a different dialogue file. We're going to Mazzy J, which is Mazzy's joined NPC dialogue, and then have her say her state 95. And then we don't have Mazzy, but we don't have Mazzy's decompiled, but basically Mazzy's 95 would send it back to here. We send it back to Mazzy's 96. Mazzy sends it back to us. Back and forth, back and forth. And then finally into Mazzy J 98. Mazzy J is 98, as we saw in the Near Infinity Ether, ends the dialogue. And ending a dialogue looks just like this, right? Your only transition is unconditional and then exit. So everywhere you see an exit, that terminates the dialogue. And then it also includes, in this case, right, we're starting the store and we're exiting the dialogue. So that's kind of dialogues in a nutshell. This is a .d file. So Waidu has essentially like kind of two sets of commands you can give it. So far, everything we've been doing has been TP2, right? So this is just kind of like general manipulation of game files. You know, we're copying, we're editing 2DAs, we're compiling a little bit, we're doing a little bit of scripting. D file is basically its own syntax. So we have, for example, we have begin. This basically says, we're creating a new dialogue file called Ribbled. And then, you know, you see that this has a very structured format. And so this is just decode at its very basic, but there's also things that we're going to be doing as part of the upgradable item where we're going to be instead telling it to, we're going to like extend bottom on a state, or we're going to copy transitions. And so this is a dialogue file at its absolute most basic. And so the problem that especially you see new botners have is they look at this and they go, okay, this is what a dialogue file looks like. And it's like, and so you get into the idea of thinking like, okay, decode is, we're going to begin a file and then we're going to do state 0, state 1, state 2, state 3. But decoding is its own language, right? You shouldn't think of this as, you know, this is like a one-to-one representation of what you see in Near Infinity. Decode is just like a TP2. We can tell it to do stuff that is not just these very basic, here's a state, here's a state, here's a state, here's a state. And you'll see this a little bit more as we get into the upgradable item, because we're going to do some of that. Just to show like an extreme at the other end, we can look at the BG2 fix pack. So this is every dialogue fix for the original Baldur's Gate 2, and you can see it looks nothing like our other code, right? There's some little bits that look like it, right? That kind of looks like what we saw in Ribald. But you see there's all sorts of commands, right? We are extending bottom. We are adding a state trigger. We are altering a transition. Basically, we're altering a transition in Animan's states with a new trigger, right? We are replacing a state trigger. You know, so kind of get into your mindset of, yes, this is dialogue, but realistically, when you're looking at decode, it's going to be something that's going to be more of a combination of the two, right? Like BG2 Fixback is on the extreme end, right? We're not actually writing or creating any dialogue. We're basically going through and correcting and tweaking errors that are in existing dialogue. So realistically, in this case, where we're going to be taking like Cespinar's dialogue and we're going to be modifying it, we're going to be adding a little bit to it, but we're also going to be kind of blending it into Cespinar, to the existing flow of Cespinar's dialogue. It's going to be a little bit of this, and it's going to be a little bit of this. And I'm showing you this too. This is highly advanced, right? I don't expect anybody to look at this and like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense what we're doing here. But I do want you to get out of the mindset of this is what a dialogue looks like, because decode is its own language in and of itself, and you shouldn't be in the mindset of this D goes to this dialogue, right? Because you could put the entire game's dialogue in one D file, and how you choose to organize your D files is entirely up to you. Like some modders, like when they ship their mods, they do like to do one D file for a dialogue, but you could do everything in one, right? There's no restriction that says you have to structure your dialogues like that. And so organize these in a way that you like, but understand that, again, I keep coming back to this, but decode are a set of instructions just like a TP2. It's not just this long form if then here's a state, if then here's a state, if then here's a state. You can also tell it to do all sorts of other stuff. And again, right here we're appending, and you see the classical states, just like we see in Ribbled. But then we go back to, we have a replace trigger text, right? We're replacing state triggers. We're adding transition triggers. So there's all sorts of other things you can do with decode beyond just your generic, here's a state, here's a state, here's a state. So that's kind of our overview of dialogues. And like I said, the two tricky things for this is knowing how replies get executed in the code. Like I said, it's the last response first, and any transition that does not have a player reply is ahead of every other reply. So if like response 0, if this didn't have player text, this would be weighted over every other reply that's here. So always keeping that in mind, and it's from the bottom up. So, the game looks at response 7. Is there a PC reply? We'll come back to it. Go to 6. And so it goes from the bottom up. And let me see if I'm hoping there's an example here in Ribbled where we've got something like that. Oh, these are all simple one reply. I'm looking for... Okay, I'm not seeing any offhand. Okay. But yeah, so again, right? Replies transitions that don't have a PC reply are always weighted ahead from the bottom up, ahead of anything with PC. Like basically PC replies are like the last resort. It'll only present you reply options if there's nothing else available. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you somehow manage to make a dialogue state and it has transitions and none of the transitions can be true, like you somehow managed to get to a state where all of the replies have a condition that can't be satisfied, the game will basically give you may have seen this before, like the no valid links to reply error message, and then just quit the dialogue. So we obviously fixed all of those in the fix pack. I don't think there are any of those in the EEs at present, but I could be wrong. But that is, if that happens, it doesn't soft lock the player. It basically says no valid links and kicks them out of the dialogue. So that can happen. Just be aware of it. So I think unless you guys have any questions about dialogue, I think let's go back. We'll make our quick upgradable items. We'll make the items really quick, and then we'll go into the upgrade process, which is going to involve a little bit of decode and just a little bit of scripting. All right, so, and I pulled up my own tutorial, which we will revisit here in a minute. So like I said, Mars X had an upgradable dart that he has since revised. He basically went back yesterday and basically said, all right, I'm going to tone these down. And he did keep up his original post at least, but he no longer wants to spark. But one of these, the dart of purifying acid, was going to be an upgrade. And it's not anymore. So we'll come back to these and we'll just make his revised options here. But where is it? The lucky sweater. The lucky sweater gives +1 to luck. And then washing the lucky sweater and nuts from the tree of life in elven holy water. Oh, it's after it becomes upgraded by Sesmar, it gives you a greater critical chance. All right. So body armor slot, I presume. And then he's got, oh, and then Magadi, oh, nice. Provided some extra flavor text. All right, so this is J. Mary asked if this is body armor slot. Well, let's see if he replied to that. There's me. Yes, body armor slot. All right. Now, Hold on 1 second. I need to blow my nose here. Let me turn off the mic for just a second so you don't have to hear. All right, so he asked for this to be in the body armor slot, and I think I'm going to make the executive decision and make this a cloak instead. And the reason why I'm going to do that is if we come and look at armor, let's look at like chainmail, for example. One of the things on items is that when you equip them, there's an equipped appearance field. And this has a very limited number of appearances, right? Like this is currently set so that when you put it on, you use the chainmail overlay. There's also leather armor, plate, and then there's ones for the weapons, for shields, and then obviously for other weapons, there's a whole bunch of helmet alternatives. All the J series, that's all thanks to One Pixel Productions. If you look at the game on the original BG2, you're only going to have like 5 or 6 different helmet variants. So in terms of body armor, so you can see these are all weapons or helmets. In terms of body armor, we don't really have a lot of options here, right? This is pretty much what we have. The sweater's going to satisfy none of these, right? Having the sweater looking like leather armor is going to be goofy, same as if we do it as a mage robe, because there's only a few variants of robes that we can do. And so if we don't give it an equipped appearance, then the player is basically going to look like, like the fighters running around in their, like they don't have anything on at all, which is also a little goofy. So, and given that this is supposed to be a sweater, I don't really have any problem of say claiming that, okay, somebody is wearing this like under their mage robe or under their leather armor instead of a cloak. So even though it says body armor, I'm going to go with a cloak just because, and I mean like a cloak, not a mage robe. CLCK. So that this is something that can be worn with body armor in the cloak slot. Just because, again, I think the appearance, like the equipped appearance isn't going to work. Now, if you're wondering why can't we add an equipped appearance, the paper doll system and how you overlay items with specific appearance is very, very complicated, and there's a reason why very, very few people have done it, and why kind of One Pixel Productions is kind of unique in this regard, because you have to edit a ton of frames and other things to get this just right, and it's well beyond the scope of trying to do a simple item mod. So even though it says body armor, we're gonna make this a cloak. So let's start with, so it's called the Lucky Sweater, so let's just call it, we'll go G3C Lucky. Actually, we'll do Luck, because it's going to be upgraded, we're going to have Luck 0, and then the upgraded one is going to be Luck 1. So G3 Cluck 0.item, okay. All right, now the nice thing is we have an item already that provides luck, and that was Slippery Court. So this one is +1 luck. Yep, these are all the effects associated with luck, so we're just going to copy and paste all of these effects, minus these two, because these were for its 3% chance that's hidden from the player of doing something goofy. So we're going to grab all these effects, we're going to copy, we're going to come over here. First, we're going to remove everything that's on this, and then we're going to paste. So there we go. There's our +1 luck. And then was there anything else about it? When it gets upgraded, it gets the 5% critical hit chance. Where is the item again? Here we go. Okay. And no item restrictions. Okay. All right, so I think that is simple enough. That's the item done. We're going to save it, overwrite, okay, and then we're going to, the upgraded version, MBG3C Luck 1. And now we're going to add an effect is going to be, I think it's just critical hit chance is way out at the end of the effect list, but I don't know which one it is. Critical hit bonus. I think this is it. Let me double check the... I mean, I know we did this on another item and I already don't remember. So, but let me just double check to make sure I'm getting the right one. So is it pound 301? The improves critical hit chances. Yeah, and we'll do it for any attack for both hands. All right, yeah. So we want to add get back here. Target self will be for 1, always instant while equipped. 100% on any attack type, yes. No save, no minimums. Okay. All right, so let's formalize the creation of these items. So let's finish up the TP2 stuff with these really quick. And because then we can get on to the upgradable stuff. Okay. There, and then meanwhile, come back here. We've got the Lucky Sweater by Stem von Boardwear. This is G3C Lock 0. And let's see, what are our current streams? We're on 35 and 36. Okay. 35 and 36. And then the upgraded one. It's going to be number 1, and this is going to be up 7 and 8. And I am going to provide, Mogadit added a little bit of flavor text that I like, so we're going to add this to the description too. All right. Got it. And 35. Can we get these to work together, or do I need to go one or the other? Let me turn board wrap back on so I don't have to keep scrolling. All right, I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna do this because Mogadit already provides a how it was knitted. We're gonna keep that, but then we're gonna add. We're just going to weld them together like this. All right, and then let's go back because I know we have here we go. We're going to, oh, I just realized Slippery Court has a typo. All right, we'll do this and this. All right. So there's the unupgraded. Now the upgraded one, we can reuse the name. So we just need to do a new description, and it's going to be the exact same thing, except that we're going to add that critical hit chance, which we've also done somewhere else in here. Oh, it's just, oh yeah, it's only on this. Okay. We'll say, all right. We'll say +1 bonus to critical hits. All right, so we need to go back to the Teep 2 really quick because it's going to use the same name on both of these. Let's make this 10, 30, 35, 36, and 35 and 37. All right, so that should be... Yep, installs just fine. Make sure the items turn up just fine. Let's see, we've got the lucky sweater. And then we've got the lucky sweater. Oh, one thing we do need to change here. So for upgraded items, basically, Cromwell or Sesmar is going to take the item and whatever ingredients are needed. They're going to destroy them, and then they're going to give you the new item back. One of the things you do have to be a little bit careful of, the new item, if it has lore, it's going to be given back to you unidentified, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So upgraded items by convention, you always set to 0 lore, regardless of what the original item has, to avoid exactly that. So let me grab that correction. I forgot that the first time around. That is something you need to think about for items. And then the other thing is we're going to go over to prices. We're going to set prices for these. And this is the... because we have 2 of them. All right, so we've basically got a cloak that provides luck. So let's look at our comparable cloak items. So cloak of protection is 5,000. This might be the closest in terms of abilities. You're basically trading saving throws for saving throws, thieving abilities, and outright luck. So +2 cloak is 3,000. Oh, because that's, as I recall, that's from... Why is that less? Probably because you get it in a different fashion. Okay. Cloak of displacement. So we're looking at +5,000. Cloak of Baldur is because of the magic resistance. It's not available in the game, but this is probably one of the most powerful items for the cloak slot. So 4,500 for the nymph cloak. Mage robes. Despite these being named cloaks, these are all body armor, so these aren't comparable. Cloak of Elvenkind. Cloak of Elvenkind is 7,500 for 50 hide and shadows. That is not worth it. Reflection, stars. Cloak of the sewers. The cheese cloak. Yeah, there's something goofy with the cloak of protection price, because the improved cloak of protection +2. Well, okay, I guess you get this from an item upgrade, so the sell price only occurs if you try to sell it, but this seems high, especially considering the +2 is only 3. So we're going to give these, let's give the basic close a price of 4,000, because it's a little bit better than a cloak +1. And then we'll give it, I don't know, 5,000 when it's upgraded. So, all right, so there's the item. The prices, like I said, the cloak prices are a little goofy, so we'll set it to this for now, and like all things, we'll leave this open. So the items are created. So now let's talk about doing the upgradable item. So essentially, if really quick before we get into that, let's take a look at, for example, Sesminar's dialogue, which if I remember right is Botsmith. Yeah, Botsmith. Okay. So again, right, we have these nice simple entry points. This is if you speak to him with somebody who is let's see. So this is the very first time you've talked to him, and if you're talking to him with the PC, this is if you've already talked to him once. This is his item wrap up. This is if you talk to Sesmar with anybody but the PC, he basically tells you, "Go away, you're not the great one." And then and then another dialogue for when he makes harbor. So if you go through Sesminar, eventually you're going to come to, I think it. Okay, yeah, here it is. State 4. 35 replies. And the reason why is because this is where all of his upgrade work is done. Right? So basically, he started out at oh, no, sorry, I want state 4. I wanted the last reply. Not state 35. So basically, like I said, because none of these are PC replies, we start at the bottom. If you have the Silver Dragon scales, he talks about upgrading the Silver Dragon scales. If you don't have this, we go to the next one. Do you have the Short Sword of Mask? If so, then let's talk about the Short Sword of Mask upgrade. Do you have Angurvidal? If that's how it's pronounced, then we go to the Angurvidal. And so each one of these is very structured. So basically, if you have Angurvidal, he makes some joke about it. And then either you have the item that can upgrade it, whatever, you either have what needs to go with it to upgrade it, or you do not. So if you don't, he basically says, if you have the sword, he basically tells you what you need to upgrade the item. He says, okay, you need liquid mercury and 10 gold. And then he moves on and he goes back to the tree and starts checking for the next upgrade. Now, if you do have the item, if you do have the component, then he basically says, oh, hey, you've got everything you need. Do you want me to make it? And so if you don't have enough gold, if our party gold is less than 10,000, and this requires 10,000, you have the option of, I don't have that much gold. If you do have that gold, if our party gold is greater than 9,999, then we can either say, sure, do it, or no. And the no option is always presented. There's no gold on here. So if you have the gold, you basically have, you can either say, sure, put them together, or no, what else. If you don't have the gold, you can say, I don't have that much gold, or no, what else. And no, what else also kicks you to the next possible upgrade. So you can see each one of these is very structured, right? In state 4, we do a check to see if you have the item. It kicks you to a little mini block of 2 or 3 states where basically he checks to see if you have the other items that you need. And if you don't, he goes on to the next upgrade. If you do have them, then there's a gold check, and basically and you could say yes or no, or I don't have the gold, or no. So you can see it's just basically like those kind of little, chunk of states repeated for each upgrade. So we need to write a little bit of dialogue if you have the item, and then whether or not you have the other stuff that's needed, and then dialogue for let's go ahead and do it, or let's not. So, and that's pretty much what we lay out in the tutorial. So this is written from the approach of Cromwell, but the same thing is true for Botsmith. It's just the states are somewhat different. So we're going to extend the bottom of Botsmith 4, right, which is his first master check of items. Get back here. So essentially we're going to extend bottom. So extending means we're going to add a transition. So we're going to add basically response number 36. And because it's at the bottom, it means R1 is going to take precedent over all of the other replies. And in the same fashion, right, we're going to, it's an item check, right? Like, do you have the item? And if so, we're going to send it to a new state that we're going to write. In fact, a new couple of states that we're going to write. So if the party has at least one item, then we're appending, which means we're adding new states. And you can see this looks very much like the decompiled Ribald, right? We've got an if and then a say. So if we have the item, we go to this new block. And then we basically, if we have everything we need, we go to party has all parts. If they don't, we have party does not have all parts. And then basically, if the party does not have all parts, we basically say, here's what you need to actually do this upgrade. And then we're kicking out to moving right along. And here's kind of the cool bit right here. So if the party, and also if the party declines, or if the party doesn't have the gold, it kicks out to moving right along. Now moving right along, instead of having like your normal transitions down below, it has copy trans. So copy trans means basically copy trans from W Smith 13, which is, again, that's Cromwell's version of Sespenar State 4. So what copy trans will do is when Waidu hits this, Waidu will come back to the state that you've targeted. We're going to use BotSmiths 4, and it will copy every reply that's there into this. So if some other mod has already added an upgradable item and it's already here, you're compatible because it's going to pull that existing reply. Similarly, if somebody comes after us, it's going to grab all these transitions, because you'll notice, like if we go to, so this has got 35 replies. So if you have the silver dragon scales and you say, okay, can we do something with them? And then you basically end up declining. Now we've got a tree with 34 replies. All right, so we'll go out to the last reply again. So if you have the short sword of mask, select, and let's say you don't have the items, he'll tell you you need the heart of the damned. And then you'll notice we're now at 33. So each one of these, like the first one is 35, then it checks, then it checks, then it checks. And so this reply tree generally gets whittled down until, let's go back to state 4, right? If we were looking at almost one of the last ones, like Montolio's, and we don't have the items, then it'll kick us out to a state with 4 until eventually you get down to the point where there are no more items that he can check for. And it'll get to be like, nope, I don't see anything here that matches recipes. So each one of those, it'll check the first item, and then it will check for, if you don't have that, it'll check for everything else. So we do that through copy trans. So copy trans will basically take, because we're essentially adding ours to the end, it will copy everything else that is there already. And then this is also how we do compatibility with other items that want to upgrade, that want to use Cromwell or Sespenar for upgrades. So that's kind of the very, very basic idea. We are just about an hour in, so I think let's take a quick break. Think about this. If you guys have any questions about how we're going to do this and all the other fun stuff, go ahead and type them in the chat and we'll get with them when we come back. But otherwise, let's take a quick break. I'm going to grab some tea, and then we'll get back onto the actual upgradable items when we get back. All right, so sit tight, everyone. All right. Got myself a little bit of tea and a throat drop, so let's continue on. So we were about to do... We have the Lucky Sweater and we have the upgraded Lucky Sweater ready to go. The other thing we do need to check before we get going is that he mentioned he wants it to be upgraded with... let's see. Nuts from the Tree of Life and Elven Holy Water. So really quick, let's look up what those items are. Items, the Holy Water is Misk AU. I'm just going to note this somewhere. Misk AU is the Elven Holy Water. And then the Tree of Life stuff. The large ones are used in the finale to build the branches, so you must mean Misk B4. Misk B4, Tree of Life. Alright, just so I don't have to look those up later. Alright, so now we are going to make our very first dialogue file. So let's do a new folder. DLG. And then decode, just like everything else, this is just a straight up, it's a text file just renamed. We're just going to call it g3cip.d. Alright, so here's our D file. So the other thing too is we also need to think about dialogue. So we are going to start off with a very simple... in fact, actually, I'm gonna cut and paste my decode from here, and we're just gonna modify it. All right, as our starting point. The difference is, because this involves Tree of Life stuff, I'm not gonna make this upgrade available to Cromwell. We're gonna make this a Sespinar exclusive. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change every W Smith to a Bot Smith, because that's Sismar's dialogue. W Smith is Cromwell, so first we're going to replace all of that. Oh. W Smith. 1 helps if I spell it right. All right, we're going to replace all. And then the other thing is, these 13s we actually want in a state 4. All right. So the tutorial is written as if you have like 3 separate parts of something. We are going to want this to trigger if you only have the unupgraded cloak. So instead of an or 3, we're going to check just for one item. So if the party has this item, then go to the party has at least one item. Now, just like when we use, say is slightly different between TP2 and decode, but the same thing is true. You can either do a string or you can do a line of existing dialogue with a pound. This would pull the existing string 1, 2, 3 from the dialogue.talk. Or in our case, we're going to do an at. And we're going to do a tray reference, and we're going to add this dialogue to our game.tray. So our first slot is 1038. And this is going to be our entrance into this dialogue path. Whoops, that should be an equal. So this is going to be Sespinar noticing that you have the sweater and just remarking upon it. So it's we need to channel our very inner I misspelled the holy water reference wrong, did I? Oh yeah, it's Misk, it's not SU. What is it? What's the point of looking up items if I Misk AU? Thank you. That would have caused us problems later. So we need to dialogue. I'm gonna tell you straight up that dialogue writing is not my forte. When I think of Sismar, I just think of him going ooh a lot. So we're gonna start off with an ooh because that's always good for Sesminar. What's this? It's all warm and fuzzy. Not fizzy, fuzzy. So this is our Sespinar. He has noticed the sweater. Now we're going to check for if the party has the other two items that we're going to need for the upgrade. So if the party has the holy water, and the tree of life nuts, then we go to the party has all parts. If I'm lacking, that should be an or 2 since we're only checking 2 items. If the party is missing either of the items, then we go to the party does not have all parts. And so if the party does not have all parts, then we basically need to tell the player, I can upgrade this item if you get these other 2 things. And then we also need to set a price for this upgrade too. Given that the original item is fairly cheap, the lowest Sespinar does an upgrade for, I think, is 5,000 gold. So we're going to set the price of this upgrade at 5,000 gold. All right, so if the party does not have all parts, we need a line for this. We're basically going to say, all right, we're going to say, nice lucky sweater. With some holy water and nuts from the life. Since he likes to refer to himself in the third person, let me close this so you can see. Sespinar can make this even better. Oh well. So this is our telling them. Oh, and then we also need to mention the price with some elven holy water and nuts from the tree. Nuts from the tree of life. Oh, get back here. And 5,000 gold pieces. Sespinar can make this even better. Oh well. So that's our 1039. Instead of this, we've got 1039. And then, so if they don't have it, it goes to moving right along is basically where it ends. All right, so if the party has all parts, you can tell this was written for Cromwell because we've got all of our dwarven eyes and whatever. Now, Cromwell is slightly different in that there's kind of an in-between state first where you basically ask what's involved. The Sespinar basically presents it directly, so we really don't need this kind of in-between. So we're going to go this. We're going to delete that state altogether because, like I said, if you look at a Sespinar upgrade, like as soon as he realizes you have the items, right? Okay, it's like, let's not do the Silver Dragon Seal. So if you have the Short Sword of Mask, he basically says, this is our, ooh, that's a nice sweater. And then either you have the parts or you don't. If you don't have the parts, he basically says, well, here's the recipe. And then he goes on to checking for other upgrades. Now, if you do have the parts, he instead goes straight to, do you want to do it? There's no, like, Cromwell has that in-between state where it basically says, hey, I can upgrade this. And then you ask how much. And then you go to another state where you make your choice. Sespinar is slightly different. And then he goes straight to the, I can do this upgrade. And they either basically say, I don't have that much money. I do have that much money, and let's do it. Or just no. So this is going to lead to a Sespinar state with 3 replies, which is essentially... So this is Cromwell structured. It's got the 2 replies. We want to add a 3. So first we need a reply for you've got everything and we can do this. So let's go back to game.trade. So this is Sespinar basically saying, can wash your sweater with the elven holy water and nuts from the tree of life.
can make it all better. It will cost 5,000 gold. All right, so this is Sesminar basically offering to make your upgrade. So we need to add the traditional first reply, which is basically I don't have enough gold. So if the party gold is less than, in this case, this is a 5,000 gold upgrade, not a 3,400. Let's also update it here while we're here. So if the party gold is less than, we're not doing anything because nothing happens on this reply. Then we're going to go to our moving right along reply, basically getting on with other replies. Then I deleted the reply. Whoops. All right. If the party gold is less than 5,000, then we're going to get the option of I don't have that sort of gold. Now I think let's double check here. I don't have that much money. I think this might be a reply that is used for a lot of. Let's check other. I don't have that much gold. I don't have that much gold. I don't have that much gold. So I'm going to use an existing string here because everybody else basically does. I don't have that much gold. So we're going to grab this reply and we're going to just use an existing one. So instead of writing our own line for this, oh, oops, I don't want to delete the whole thing. We're just going to use an existing string. Now, the nice thing for this, one of the nice things about using existing strings where you can, is that it makes life easier for your translators because this is a line they don't have to translate, right? The Spanish-speaking players, this string already exists in their talk in Spanish. Same for Italians and all the other language that the game is in. So by doing this, this is one less thing for your translators. So if there's a line that you can reuse, by all means do it because it, this isn't going to be that big of a mod in terms of dialogue, but every little bit you can save your translators, do it because there are basically two groups in our communities that are really underappreciated. One is the tool makers, right? Somebody like Argent doesn't get nearly enough credit for the fact that he does all these tools that make all these other mods possible. Argent, and then like our Waidu maintainers, right? There's Weimer, and then there's the Big, and now the Wisp. And all the folks who make tools like Sam has an amazing suite of graphical tools that we'll get to when we get to BAMs and other things. That's one group that doesn't get nearly enough appreciation. The other one that doesn't get nearly enough appreciation are the translators. It's a very, very thankless job. So anything you can do to make their lives easier is do it because they've got more than enough work already. All right, so that's a very simple no. And I wonder if the no's are also basically generic no what else. Let's check. Yep, also a no what else. Yep, so we're going to reuse this reply as well. So that's two lines we have just saved our translators. Now let's see, is the line in between also? Sure, let's see what it does. All right. Sure, do it. Yeah, these are slightly different. Sure, do it. Sure, go ahead. These are all some variant of sure. So yeah, I'm just going to grab sure, go ahead. So we're going to reuse all of these lines. All right, now this is Cromwell's exit state, and I think for Sesminar it's a different. All right, State 11 starts universal cutscene. I'm so glad Jasty came along and saved me. So let me double check that. So basically we say, sure, go ahead. Yep, it kicks us to state 11. All right, so let's go back to our D file, and this is going to take us to state 11. And so typically, when you say sure, go ahead, we're going to set a global. This global basically is going to be passed along to Sespinar's script and tell them what item to actually make. The other thing that Sespinar does when you say let's go for an upgrade, he'll take the party gold, and then you'll notice he destroys the gold. He'll take the items needed, and then immediately destroy them. And the reason why that is, when you take a party item, it would be in Sespinar's inventory, and same with the gold. So in the olden days, you could do the exploit of you would get an upgrade from Cromwell or Sespinar, and then be able to pickpocket the items back. Or if you killed them, you could get your gold back. So this is a way to avoid that exploit. Basically, as soon as you take the stuff from the player, immediately destroy it, and it closes that exploit. So in this case, we're just going to copy this as a template. All right. And just because I made over 10 of, we'll line all this stuff up. All right, so instead of item maker, we're going to go G3C. Upgrade. Up. The main thing here is that this is unique because this is going to be what we use in his area script to actually do it. So we're going to take party gold. We're going to destroy 5,000 gold. We're going to take the item. Now this take party item versus take party item number. Take party item num is used for when you want to take one item out of a stack. Actually, we can leave this as num. I mean, these items don't stack, but this isn't going to hurt anything. So we're going to take it. We're going to destroy it. We're going to take a single instance. We're going to take one copy of Miskayu, which is the holy water, and then one instance of the Tree of Life nuts. So, and we're going to, the comments don't mean anything here because these are obviously from what we copied and pasted. All right, then that should be all the dialogue we need. Now, the second half of this, if you go to, what is Sespinar's area? I want to say area, I think pocket plane is 4,500. Yes. All right, so this is the pocket plane. This is where Sespinar and the Solar hang out. If I remember it, I think his are driven by, I don't think it's Sespinar's personal script. Ooh, I stand corrected. Okay. So this area script is where Sespinar actually does the upgrades. So basically, every one of those upgrades passes along item maker and global and then some value. These are for all of his existing out-of-the-box upgrades. So basically, you give him a global, you tell him forge stuff, he forges it, give item create, which means he creates the item and then immediately gives it to player one. In the start dialogue, no set, he basically talks to the player. So when we sign off, so let's go back to his dialogue really quick. Let's go to state 4 and let's just pick a random upgrade. So let's say we're going to upgrade the Bard's gloves. We have all the components. We say yes. So he basically says, I'm going to set item maker to 34. He takes all of the items needed. He destroys them. He destroys the gold. So we've set item maker to 34. And then we're going to start the cutscene Cutsmith. And so Cutsmith, let's take a look at Cutsmith really quick. It's our first foray into cutscenes, but it'll just be, I just want to check something. So we're not going to talk too much about it. So basically his cutscene, it moves the object so that Sespinar is sorted. He plays some graphics. He sets the global imp forge stuff, and then he ends the cutscene. So imp forge stuff, if we come back to his script, And we set item maker 30 to 34 when we started this. So come down here and we find, where's 34? Here we go. So if the item maker is set to 34 and imp forge stuff is 1, we set imp forge stuff to 0, showing that the forging is complete. We give the player the wondrous gloves, and then we start dialogue again. And so if we go back to his dialogue, we have so global is greater than item maker. So it's still at 34 for making the item. So we start here. So this is state 143. Let's go to state 143 so we can see this. He says, enjoy. Now Sespenar goes back to his duties. Oh yes, lots of goodies to find, lots of goodies to collect. And here is where we set item maker back to 0. So nice and easy. So we're basically going to copy this state on our own as a return state because we don't want to use item maker because probably other modders are going to want to use this. So we're gonna make a quick copy of this for us as just a complete state. So we're going to add an if, then begin item forged. Say this if then exit. And although we do want to do in here, and so we're going to set. This is going to be our trigger. And then we're going to set this back to 0 on our way out. And because we want this, we don't want him to go back into his generic dialogue. We are going to wait this really quick. Where does the wait go? Right after the F. Okay. We're going to weight this at -1. Now, -1 is going to put it ahead of all other dialogues. Because as soon as that cutscene is in, we don't want him to go into like his generic dialogue. We want him to give this very specific, the item has been forged. And then and then he basically says that one line, and then he resets this variable so that it doesn't happen again, and then we're done. And then we need to end the append. All right. Right, yeah. Actually, let me do this so it's a little more obvious. There we go. All right, so we've got all this, and then and then we also need a replacement line for moving right along. So. And for this, we'll just go, this is if you decline it or if you don't have enough gold. In this case, we're just going to say, all right, 1041. Well, if you never mind, we'll do an oh well, since that sounds a little more Sespenar. For any dialogue writers out there, if you want to take a crack at these lines and channel your inner Sespenar, by all means. These are certainly not. And I have a typo in 1040, 11 holy water. Thank you, Zen Black. One of the things I do before releasing is I'll run this whole thing through a spell checker. So, but if you guys spot things that are wrong, by all means, let me know. Like, I'm not sure if I think this might be meant to be a Holophant, which I'm not sure if it's spelled that way, but that's something that we'll check with the spell checker before we go. All right, so let's drop that back in here. This is going to be say at 1041. All right, so that should be everything we need for dialogue. Now we do need to add to Sespenar's script so that he will create our item. So let's just grab one of these existing things, and we're going to create a new file. Let's go to our BAF folder, and we're going to do a new text document. We're going to call this botsmith.baf. All right, except in this case, instead of item maker, this is going to be our custom G3C upgrade. Imp Forge stuff gets set by state 11 on our way out. So this is just his generic, his generic stuff. G3C upgrades. Or Imp Forge stuff gets set to 0. And instead we are creating G3C luck 1. And then we're starting dialogue when we're all done. All right, so we've got our dialogue done. We've got our scripting done. We've already got our item in the game. So scripting. Now, in this case, like when we did Zalanora's, the addition of her AI scripting to use this item, we had to do this awful decompile and patch thing because we were adding something to the middle of her script. With Sespinar, right, so I named it the same as the file stuff. Now for Sespinar, it's nice and easy. We're going to extend bottom. For extend bottom, you basically need an existing script, and we're going to extend it with that little script bit I just wrote, which is C3 CIP baff botsmith.baff. So this is basically going to take this little chunk of scripting, and it's going to add it to the end of his script. So it'll turn up here at the very, very bottom. You know, it'll turn up here. It's so much, being able to extend things is so much nicer because, you know, you don't have to do, you know, this crazy replacement with a replace textually that you saw that we had to do for Zaladora. There's also an extend top if you want your stuff to go to the top. In general, because scripts are executed top to bottom, if you don't need to put yourself as like the highest priority, don't. Extend bottom is preferable to extend top because somebody else may have some quest stuff they need to put at the top of his script. And so just like this is going to be just fine at the bottom of the script, so you don't need to force it to the top. So we're going to extend it to the bottom. And we're going to change this section to scripting /dialogue. Because the other thing we need to do is we now need to compile our dialogue file. So we're going to compile it. And basically compiling just basically means execute this. g3sip.d. And let me double check that it is, okay, the folder is named dialogue. Okay. All right, and so I wanted to, and the other thing is I wanted to touch upon something that Mikhail mentioned that if you notice, he spotted this quite well. So if you notice, let's go back to state 4, and we'll look at some of these upgrades. So he noticed that I don't have that much gold is 67003. But if we go to the next one is 67011. 67018. The existing dialogue.talk is rife with repeated lines like this. There's just a ton of them. Anybody who's the original dialogue, it reuses the same text is in several places, in multiple places. When you add strings with why-do, like if I were to add a new string that said this, it would basically find, and it tries not to duplicate strings. It would basically, if the text is already in the talk somewhere, it will reuse it. It won't create strings if it doesn't have to. So if we were instead to add this to the tray file and add this as an @ reference, it would end up with one of these existing string references because, again, why-do doesn't like to reuse, it doesn't like to add new strings unless it has to. But yeah, there's a lot of repeated strings in the talk file. Why-do will avoid that, but in the existing talk, there's no way around that. So I think that should be everything. So we're compiling the dialogue. We're extending Sespinar script with the little baff with this little bit that we wrote. Let me just add that. All right, let's save that. Let's make sure this is saved. Let's try running this and see if it works. All right, so everything compiled, which is always a good sign. So let's refresh our tree. All right, so now let's find, actually, let's go to his creature file. Let's find Sespinar, old botsmith himself. And now let's look at his dialogue. So the first thing we did was we extended the bottom of state 4. So let's see, state 4, we now have 36 replies instead of 35. And what is 36? If the party has the lucky sweater, the luck 0, the base sweater. So if the party has this, he says, ooh, what's this? It's all warm and fuzzy. Now, if the party does not have the requisite items, if they're missing one of these 2 items, he basically says it's a nice lucky sweater with some holy water, nuts, 5,000 gold. He can make this even better. Oh, well. And then he says, oh, well, if you change your mind. Oh, we may need to change that. Then he basically says, oh, yeah, so that's... Yeah, let's get rid of this oh, well, because he basically says this in the later stage. So let's change that dialogue slightly. So he says, all right, here's your formula. You don't have it. And he says, oh, well, if you change your mind. And notice we're back. We've got 35. This is that copy trans. This copied all of the existing replies that were on state 4 to here. So now we have all of the other. Now he's going to go looking for all of the other upgrades. So if you say no, then he goes and he looks for his normal upgrades. And the nice thing is if a mod comes after us, they will also copy this state 4 that now includes our upgrade. So if like you install item upgrade after this, item upgrade will add a bunch of upgrades to Sespinar. And then after it goes through all the item upgrades, it will then now check for, because they're going to be copying trans off the same state 4, they're also going to check for the lucky sweater. So we're compatible with every other mod that wants to do an item upgrade with Sespinar. All right, so let's go through this again. We have the lucky sweater, and this time we're going to say we have both of these items. So Sespinar says, Sespinar can wash your sweater with holy water and nuts to make it all better. It will cost 5,000 gold. You can say, I don't have that much gold. And he says, oh, well, if you change your mind, and we're back to checking for other upgrades. Or we can just say no. What else? Oh, ooh, that is... No, this is being sent to the wrong place. All right. Okay, let me see. If the party has the item, the lucky sweater. If we have the items. And then if we say no... Wait, hold on. Let me go back to state 4. Somehow I got lost here. I'm sorry. All right, if we have the lucky sweater, if we have the requisite... Now, if we don't have... If we just say no, he goes to, oh, well, change your mind, and then we're going back through the responses. Now, if we have the items, we have the gold, and we say yes. We set this global. We take the gold. We destroy the gold. We take the item, destroy it. Take the elven holy water. We take 1 elven holy water and destroy it. We take 1 tree of life nut and destroy it. So we've set G3C upgrade to 1. And we come here to, okay, stands back. Then never use this recipe. It could be messy. And he starts the cutsmith. He starts cutsmith, which is a cutscene. So in cutsmith... In Cutsmith, we move the object so that Sespinar is shown. He plays some effects on himself. He sets Imp Forge stuff to 1, and then he ends the cutscene. And so when the cutscene is over, let's go back to Sespinar. Sespinar's script. We have Imp Forge stuff at 1, but item makers is at 0 because these are all of his existing upgrades. But if we come all the way down to the bottom, we have Imp Forge stuff 1 and we have G3C upgrade as 1. So we set Imp Forge stuff back to 0. We give the updated lucky sweater to the player, and then we start a dialogue with player 1. And so if we come back to his dialogue, enjoy. Now Sespinar goes back to his duty. So this only happens if this is set to 1, which it is. And that only gets set to 1 with our upgrades. what state 167. And so as part of that, he sets this back to 0 so that this no longer triggers in future dialogues, and then it exits. So there we go. We have an item that now upgrades with Sespinar. Nice and easy. You know, the hardest part about this, at least for me, is writing Sespinar style dialogue. And like I said, any writers out there who want to take a crack at this, by all means, it's 4 lines of lines of dialogue for Sespinar. So there you go. Oh, and you know what? Oh, I do want to change this line. Okay. Really quick. Let's go back to Sespinar's dialogue. So let's go back to state 4, response 36. And basically, if we have the lucky sweater, all right. So basically, if we don't have the item, he basically, or if we don't have the other 2 items, he basically says, Sespinar can make this a little better. And then he says, oh, well, if you change your mind. This doesn't really match. If you don't have the items, this doesn't really match. This reply is not. The dialogue flows a little weird because he basically says, hey, this is a nice sweater. With these 2 items and some gold, I can make this even better. Oh, well. And we already took off the oh, well, but Sespinar can make this even better. Oh, well, if you change your mind. The thing is, this doesn't match if I just don't have the items. That is appropriate for if we have the items and then we choose not to. Like if I say I don't have that much gold, he says, oh, well, if you change your mind. It also doesn't match that. The only one that this matches is if I say no. Oh, well, if you change your mind. Well, it makes sense for that reply, but it doesn't make sense for the other ones. So let's tweak this line so it'll match all 3 of those. So we want something that will work if we've refused, if we don't have the gold, or if we don't have the other items. What do we want Sespinar to reply? So we can do something a little more generic, like what does he use in other situations like this? That might be a good thing to look at. So let's look at, like, if we are refusing another. So if we were doing, let's say, oh yeah, here we go, Hill of the Rock. All right, if we don't have it, he basically gives us the recipe and says, oh yeah, he just does like a generic like vamping line before coming back. And then if we do have it and we say don't have that much gold, not return. We do have it, we select, we say I don't have that much gold. He basically says, you need gold. Oh, and he ends. Okay, this is something different than Cromwell. So if you don't have gold, he basically says, piss off. And he ends the dialogue outright. He doesn't even go rummaging again. So we have to change our dialogue struct a little bit. Is that the case for all of these? Do all of the, I don't have enough gold. Yep. Every time you don't have gold, it sends you to state 10. So let's change that in our dialogue. So if we don't have gold, rather than moving right along, we want to go to state 10, where Sespinar basically says, get out of here, you bum, come back with gold. All right, so that's easy enough. All right, so now what about for, oh, not that one, here we go. So if I just say no, he goes back to, okay, hold on. Let's go back to 4. Go back to, all right. So if we have the short sword and mask, if we have the components, and then we basically say no. Yeah, so he just does like a generic, I'm just going to keep looking. And that is shared with, if you don't have the components, he gives you the recipe, and then he goes, okay, I keep looking. Okay. So instead of this line being something like, if you change your mind, this is going to be, let's see what else we have in here. Lots of stuff to see. So we're going to change this instead to like a generic, we're moving on to the next item, rummaging through your pack. So, Mikhail, what do you mean no trigger? Clarify that. I'm gonna rerun the mod and see if the dialogue runs a little smoother. All right, let's refresh this. We're going back to Botsmith. We're going to take a look at our upgrade on 36. So if I have the lucky sweater, it's all warm and fuzzy. If we don't have the components, then he gives us the formula, and then he says, let's see what else we have in here. Lots of stuff to see. And then he checks for his other items. And Zen Black has given me a better line, so we'll swap that out in a second. For right now, I just want to make sure. Okay, fair enough. So let's go back. So if we do have the components, then he basically says, I can do this. It'll cost 5,000 gold. If I say I don't have the gold, he goes to get your poor ass out of here, and he ends the dialogue, just like he does with the other upgrades. If we tell him no, then he goes back to this line that I'm about to swap for Zen Blacks. And if we do have everything when we want to, we've got the gold, then we go into the regular forge stuff. All right, so I'm gonna grab Zen Black's improved line here instead. Okay, so there we go. That is an upgradable item. Like I said, the same thing. I wrote the tutorial for Cromwell, but it's essentially the same thing, right? So let's go back to our dialogue file and talk a little bit more about what we did, just kind of as a summation. So we're extending the bottom of Botsmith 4. Botsmith 4 is Sespenar's main dialogue where he checks for items. We're extending the bottom of this to make, now remember, transitions are evaluated from the bottom up. So that means Sespenar's first check for upgrades is the lucky sweater, is the item that we just added. So that's why we're extending bottom. So we've extended bottom, and then if we have the item, we send it to this new block. Append means that we're adding dialogue states to Botsmith, to Sespenar. And we basically added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states. And so basically the first one is this intermediate state where we check to see if we have everything we need for the upgrade. If we don't, we send it to this party does not have all parts, where he basically says 1039 is here's the formula. Here's what you need to actually do this upgrade. And then the moving right along, which is where he kind of vamps a line and then does the other check. And we're copying the transitions from Botsmith 4. So all the transitions that were on all of the other checks he does for upgrades in this 4 get copied over to this moving right along state. So basically, if we either don't have the items or if we decline the upgrade, he then goes through his normal existing tree of upgrades to check for those. So if we do have all the items, but we don't have the gold, we kick it out to Sespenar's existing I need gold for everything, go away state, which is his state 10. Right, this is the same reply you get for every other upgrade if you say I don't have the gold. He basically says I need gold, get out of here. If we choose not to do the upgrade, we again come back to the state where we're going to check for all of his existing upgrades. If we do it, then we set the variable that we use in the area script. We take the gold, we destroy the gold, we take the needed items for the upgrade. We take one of them because we don't need multiple holy waters, we just want one. And as soon as we take an item, we destroy it. Take an item, destroy it, take an item, destroy it. And this is, again, to avoid exploits. And we go to his existing state 11, which is his kickoff to his cutscene. And then post cut, so he goes through his botsmith cutscene, gives us our item. After the cutscene is done, this kicks in. And then we come back to this. So if C3 upgrade, if we have done the upgrade, this is the state that we're going to come back to. And because we weighted this as -1, this is weighted higher than everything else in his dialogue. And we do that because we know this is going to be a one-off that's never going to repeat. You do want to be a little bit careful about dialogue weighting, because what you can do is if I weighted this too high and I didn't essentially clear out its trigger, that means that this could then block his normal dialogue. So that is one thing you want to be a little bit careful when you're weighting something this heavily, is that keep in mind you are putting it ahead of all of his dialogue. And if you do this wrong, you're going to block Cespenar's normal dialogue for other stuff, including, for his other upgrades, for everything else. But because we know we are immediately clearing this trigger so that it can never trigger again, it's safe to do it, because this is basically it's going to pop up. He's going to give one line, and then you're never going to see this again. And this condition is never going to be true again, because there's no way to get another sweater and go through this upgrade again. And even if it did, then it immediately clears itself. So that's why I just be a little careful when you use, weight -1, because if you don't do it right, you can screw over everybody else who's trying to use that dialogue. So otherwise, that's an upgradable item. If we wanted to do it for Cromwell, you'd basically do something very similar, except using W. Smith of 1 is Cromwell's dialogue, and he does all of his upgrades in. We can actually just take a quick look. W. Smith 01. He does all of his upgrades on state 13. But it's the same idea, right? You would basically extend your upgrade to the bottom of this, and then you would come back and you would copy these transitions if the player either didn't have all the items or declined an upgrade. And same thing, right? He'll check for, he'll see that you have an item, and then he'll see if you have the other stuff that's needed for it. If you don't, he tells you the formula, and then he goes back to checking other stuff. And if you do have it, actually, hold on. Yeah. If you do have the other items, he'll basically say, you'll get a chance to what's involved in that. And no, I don't think so. And then he'll give you the demand for gold and you can decline or do other things otherwise. But it's the same concept. Basically, you insert both Cromwell and Cespenar run through one master state that has all their upgrades. You extend the bottom, and then later on, when you're done and the player's declined, then you copy that out to your end state, and then everything else either funnels to moving to this end state or into doing the actual upgrade. So that's your upgradable item. If you look at a mod like Item Upgrade does this, and then it basically has its own global that it uses. And then this would be, 1 for one upgrade, 2 for another, 3 for another, 4 for another, that sort of thing. But it's basically this just done repeatedly. So I think that's it for upgradable items. Unless you guys have any questions, I think I'm going to go back and maybe do a couple more items to wrap up. We're about an hour 50 in. We can go for a little bit longer. And while I'm thinking about it, programming note, I am not going to be streaming on Sunday. We'll have a stream tomorrow, but my wife is coming back late Saturday, and so Sunday I want to keep the day open. She's either going to want to sleep to recover from her trip, or if she's awake, then I want to do something with her. So there's going to be no stream on Sunday. The Monday stream time might be adjusted a little bit, but we'll see. For now, let's just say for sure no streaming on Sunday. Monday time might be a little variable. It might do it a little bit later in the day, but just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up. So We're about an hour 50 in. Let's take another quick break, and then we'll come back. And I think we've got spiked armor, and then we've got some darts to do. And I think that will be, that's like 5 items, but I think they're going to be pretty straightforward. So I think we'll be able to wrap those up, even if we end up going a little bit long. But let's take another little break, and then we'll come back, and then maybe go for another half hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, depending on how well it goes. And we'll see if we can kind of knock out the rest of the simple items on the to-do list. So quick break, back in like 3-4 minutes. All right, we're back. So one thing I realized is that we did all that work and then we didn't make our commit. So let's go ahead and do that first off as we're getting back. Script, and the items themselves, yeah. Okay, I think that's everything. Yep, all right. All right, commit and push. And we're done. All right, so let's see where we were on our list. All right, we're still pretending subtle doctor's item doesn't exist. We're still growling at the Realms Master brush. Minstrel's Defense is going to be another thing that I need to see if we can even do. This is where we ended yesterday, so we're on Spiked Armor. All right, so yes, as I recall, so this is a Dwarven-only armor that's spiked, and it's essentially going to be only when that it basically does a retaliatory effect, but only when the dwarf is in a berserk state. So I thought about how to do this the other day, and I came to the conclusion that what we're going to do is, because this is tied to a specific ability, basically the enrage ability of a berserker, is that we're going to add 2 spells to the existing enrage ability. One is going to be an A spell that basically says block B, and the B spell which actually does this retaliation effect. So that means that anybody just using enrage will get spell A cast on them. Spell A will cast all that spell A does is block spell B. Spell B is the one that has this retaliation effect. So under normal circumstances, A blocks B, B never goes to effect. So in most cases, those do absolutely nothing. And what we're going to do is, on this armor is going to have, while it's equipped, it's going to block A. So that if it's somebody who is wearing this armor, they block A, they use enrage, A gets blocked, so B will actually go into effect, and they will get this retaliation effect. So I was thinking about how to do this yesterday. I was thinking like spell states and all that other stuff. But this one, because it's tied to one very specific ability, we can do this. So this is going to involve, first we're just going to make the item. Then we're going to need to go into the enrage ability and add these 2 spells. That one will do the retaliation, the other one will just block the retaliation. So first let's make the basic item. So I'm just going to copy and paste all of this. And this is an exceptionally heavy plate. We may want to adjust that. Magical plate tends to... oh, well, he says it's non-magical plate. Okay. So he does want a non-magical plate. All right. So let's come back here. And I'm just going to copy and paste it here for a moment. So it's plate, and it's 65 pounds, and it's a base armor class of 3. So this is not plate. This is full plate. Let's go to item. Let's find the plate. Oh, no, I take that back. It is not full plate. Because full plate is armor class 1. Okay. Yeah, because this is armor class 3, right? Yep. So we're just going to start with our basic plate. We're going to add a copy of it. This is going to be G3C spike dot item. Okay. So, and I don't think there's... The weight needs to increase because he wants it to weigh 65. The other thing is he wants it to be a dwarf-only item. So no elf, no half-elf, no halfling, human, gnome, or half-orc. So it's going to be druid, or it's going to be dwarf only. It's going to be 65 pounds. 3-0 for slashing, requires 12 strength. I think these are all default. Yeah, that's all just default plate properties. And then it's just got that 1 equipped ability. So that, oh, and then we're going to add an effect that is going to block for self while equipped at 100%. We're going to make 2 spells. Like I said, this is going to be added to the string. We're going to block G3C spike A, and then B is going to do the retaliation effect. All right. So everything else here is kind of your normal armor stuff. It basically sets the armor class to 3. It has an additional 3 bonus against slashing. You can't stealth in it. You can't thieve in it. You can't cast in it. So these are all kind of your generic armor. And that's one of the reasons why I love copying existing items, because I don't have to go and think about, oh, what does plate do? All this is here by default. And we don't have to worry about usabilities because those are also already set. So, all right. So that is nice and easily made. So let's go ahead and it's going to be, I need a G3C spike. It's going to be spiked armor. Oh, whoops. Spiked armor by, who made this? A Green, okay. To our strings. We're going to go at 1042 and at 1043. Okay, hold on. Let me drop back here really quick. And we're just, everything below that one equipped ability, we're gonna copy and paste because it's identical. Except it's 65 weight. All right, the other thing too is because this is non-magical, right now these are being written to the identified field. We're gonna actually update the general. We're going to update the general description to this. Where is it? So we're actually going to be writing at 08 and we're going to be writing at 050 because it's not magical. It's not going to be identified. This is just straight up plain dwarven plate mail. And it's going to strings 42 and 43. 42 and 43. So that's the easy part of it. Now we're going to find Enrage and we're going to add 2 spells to it. So we're going to talk a little bit about kits and how they work, just so that I can demonstrate how we're going to find the Enrage ability. So, I mean, we could just search for it because it's named, but I figure this is a good excuse to talk about kits for a little bit. So in the 2DA files, we have a kit list. And you can see all the kits are named here. And then it's got 3 strings. These are basically like the kit description and like when you go to select a kit in character creation, these are like the help screen is everything that it does. And then it tells you where it keeps its ability. So we're looking for Berserker specifically. And it says abilities are in Clab FiO2. So each kit, by tradition, we call these Clab. Mod ones can be called whatever you want them to be. But traditionally, we call these Clab files. We're going to go to Clab Fighter 02. And this basically defines everything that a fighter gets. In this case, at level 1, it gains GA special 321. So basically, whatever special 321, whatever the spell is, anybody with this kit gains 1 casting of it at level 1. You can see they get a second one at 5, another one at 9. And you can see this keeps going out all the way to level 37. So as opposed to like, this is the default fighter, right? Fighters don't get any perks or anything. So they don't get any abilities at any levels. Like the 4 stars means nothing. The other thing that you can get is you can get something applied, right? This is something that essentially when you hit level 1, it casts one special 131 and special 133 on you. And so usually this is where you get like, say a Kinsai speed bonus will be from a spell being cast on you or like, you know, Blades combat bonuses. this will be a spell that is applied to your character to provide those bonuses. As opposed to this, special 321 is the enrage ability. So I gain one use of the enrage ability at level 1, another one at 5, another one at 9, so on and so forth. So that's how you read your kit abilities. So we can come down to, so special 321. Let's go look at our spells. So 321. Sure enough, it's enrage. So here is enrage, and then this is, you know, where you get all of your bonuses, which is a lot because there's a ton of immunities to go along with enrage. So what is this spell? This removes. Oh, I think it removes. Okay, let's see what that does. Okay. So what we want to do here is we want to add 2 effects to the existing enrage ability. We're going to have one that's going to cast spell, you know, the G3C Spike A, and then a second one that casts G3C Spike B. And we want the A basically blocks B, and then B is what does the retaliation effect. So our first step here is we want to modify special 321. So we're going to need to copy existing. Yeah, this is going to be our first spell edit. All right. So we're going to copy existing special 321.spell. And this is the Berserker Enrage ability. Now we have a couple of ways we can do this. If we go to the Waidu documentation, we can find an existing effect and we can clone it using the clone effect function. Or there's also just straight up the add spell effect macro. So either one of these will work. I'm just going to use add spell effect, and then once I have it, I'm going to clone it into the second effect. So these are all of the variables we can set to it. So let's start off with, this is the patch function. So we are going to the launch patch function, this name. And now int var are, again, right, these are our, just like above here, int var are all of the numerical variables that we're going to pass along to it. So we're going to set, this is, we want opcode equals 146 because this is, 146 is the opcode that casts spells. Target is going to be 2 because that's the preset target, right? We can go back to the enraged ability and look, right? Everything else is, that's the opcode. Oh, sorry, we want to target self because this is self cast. So I'm glad I checked. We want target equals 1. And then power is going to be 0. So any variable that we don't specify is going to be 0 by default. And then, so really quick, let's add this manually and see what we would want this effect to look like. And then we'll copy that out to the effect. So we want this to be, because then this will make a little more sense too. You can see it in here in front of you. We're going to cast spell. We're going to cast it at ourselves. We want it to be cast instantly at the caster level. That's fine because it's only going to have one ability. We want it to be a permanent cast. Yes, we want it to be a permanent cast because the spell itself will have the duration. So, because we only want this to last while Enrage is going, but we're going to permanently cast the spell, and then the spell itself will have time limited effects. So that'll be how we limit it. We don't want it to be actually, we do want it to be dispelled. How are other effects done? Okay, other effects can be, well, bypass resistance and cannot be dispelled. Is that correct? Yep, everything else is using 2. All right. Not dispel, bypass resistance. I want the probability to be 100. And then I don't think there are any saves or any other limitations. Yeah, no saves. No nothing. Okay. So everything else will be 0, and except for the resource is going to be a spell that we're going to create. So this is going to be hidden string. This is going to be G3C spike A. So this is essentially what we're going to create with our add spell effect. These are the parameters that we're looking for. So we've already done the opcode, we've done the target. Anything that's 0, we don't need to specify. Parameter, this is parameter 1, this is parameter 2. We want to set it to 1. So we've got parameter 2 equals to 1. We want the timing to be 1. We want it to be instant permanent, so timing. And I'm just writing these from memory because I know these, but you can look all these up in the WeDo docs. We've got timing, we've got parameter 2. Next is going to be resist dispel. Resist dispel is 2. Resist. Oh, I don't want to type. Let's try this again. Resist dispel equals to 2. Probability 1. I think this is 100 by default, so I don't think I need to specify this. Yes, probability 1 is by default 100, so we don't need to specify this. By default, that will be 100. And then we need to specify the resource is the last thing we need to specify. And that is, this is a sprint. So that means this is not an int var, but this is a string variable. Resource equals to this. Why are you copying the line again? Spike A. Now there's one other thing we want to specify is the insert point. So we'll put that first. Now the insert point basically specifies where in this list of effects do you want this to be. Now generally anywhere is fine except for this spell is special in that at the very end it prevents itself from casting again. So if we were to add this as the last effect, it would be blocked. Because all these things go into effect, and then this blocks anything that follows it. And that's basically so that you can't stack Enrage on top of itself. But then the problem is so we can't do it as the last. We also can't do it as the first. Actually, no, we can do it as the first. I take that back. Okay, I worried that it might remove itself, but no, we can insert it as the very first effect. So we're going to go, in that case, insert point is, I believe, 0 by default. So I take it back. We don't need to specify this at all. It's added as the last effect by default. Okay, no, so we do need to specify it. We want this to be the first effect added. So we're going to insert it as the first effect, opcode 146, target 1, permanent, resist a spell, and it's going to cast the spell. And we basically want both of these to be added. So we're just going to duplicate this, and we're going to do B. And the reason why these are out of order is because this is going to get inserted as the first effect, and then because we want it to be after, this is then going to get inserted as the 0 effect. So we can make a quick check and make sure that this works. So let's install this really quick. All right, error loaded. Oh, because I didn't move the, oh shoot, okay. I didn't actually move the item over into the override. All right, let's cut this. All right, now let's try this. All right, everything installed. So now if we go back to, let's hit F5 to refresh our tree. We're going to discard changes because I didn't actually want to keep any of that. So now if we come back to Enrage, right here at the top of its effect stack, it's now casting G3C Spike A and then G3C Spike B. So that's exactly what we wanted. And they're both being cast on self. They're both being cast instantly, permanently, with the same dispel and resistance as everything else, 100%. So A and B are right there. So now we need to make A and B. So that was a nice little quick edit to to it. So now, like I said, A is good. The only thing that A is going to do is A is going to block B, and then B is the one that's actually going to do the retaliation damage. So we did something similar with the slippery court item, where we had A, where all A did was block B. So we're actually going to use that as our base. So we're going to copy court A, except we're going to make this G3C spike A. Dot spell. And in this case, we actually don't need to remove. Well, I guess we can, just to be on the safe side. We can make this as out of the string. G3C, except instead it's going to be remove spike A. Let's copy that. G3 spike B, and then it's going to, and then it outright blocks into the string. Spike B. All right, now this is tied to the enrage ability. So remove effects from resource always should be instant permanent with 0 duration. But this, we want it to be limited. 2 seconds will be enough to just block the spell. That's all we need. So we can leave this as 2 seconds. That's totally fine. So there's the A. The A spell is done. All right, so let's save, overwrite. Okay. So now we'll use the B as also as the basis for, this is going to be the actual retaliation effect. Now this one, because it's tied to enrage, let's remove all of these. Let's grab Keldorn's sword. Actually, no, let's grab Fire Shield as a retaliation. And since it's a spell, it can be closer to what we're looking for. So let's find Fire Shield. Oh, is it 2 words? It is. Okay. So we're going to grab Fire Shield. Yeah, save changes on our way out. Fire Shield, basically, we don't need the resistance bonuses or the spell states. Oh, does it do it through an EFF file? Oh, how about that? Why does it do that through an EFF file? All right, well, whatever. We'll use this as our basis. I don't really see why we need to use an EFF file. Something like Keldorn's sword just works directly. So, yeah, that's just kind of weird. It does it that way. All right, so let's come back to our G3C. We're looking for spike B. All right, we're going to add an effect. It's going to be the 232, the cast spell on condition. All right, and it's going to be cast. Hold on, we can just open up the EFF. Self, last hitter. Let me just double check. 4-3D is just damage, right? Yeah. Oh, I know why it does. Okay. I understand why it runs it through an EFF, because for Fire Shield does damage in a small area of effect, whereas all the other effects are target itself. So that's why Fire Shield does it a little goofy. If we were to look at something like Keldorn's sword, that's probably a better example for what we're trying to do. Open up a new window. So yeah, this just has a straight up 232. That if he gets hit by anybody, it retaliates with that spell. So we're just going to do something like this. All right, so let me go back to my 232. All right, so it's on itself. The target is going to be the last hitter. And if I'm hit by anyone, yes. And this is going to be a 60-second ability because enrage lasts for 60 seconds. So we only want this retaliation effect to be in effect while I'm enraged. Enrage lasts 60 seconds. So this is going to last 60 seconds. We're going to want this to run for 100. And then the retaliation spell is going to be G3C Spike, and we'll name this C. No save, no minimum levels. All of that looks good. I'm going to change this to Dispel by Attachment to... Yeah, actually, no natural, non-magical, because this is straight up just my armor is spiky, so there's nothing magical about it. All right, so let's save this. Okay, and then let's grab, so Keldorn is the actual spell that does the retaliation damage, so we're going to copy this, and we're going to call this G3C Spike C.spell. And this is going to be... and he said, I think 1d4 damage. Uh, 1d4 piercing damage. All right. So damage, we want this to be piercing damage. And instead of just 5 points, you want it to be 1 die of 4 damage. Should bypass mirror image. Everything else looks good. All right, I think that is it. Let's save this. Save. All right, okay. Let me refresh the tree. All right, let's grab those 3 spells out of the override. Drop them into our mod. Now, none of these need names or anything else, so we're just going to just copy them over because they don't need to have any strings or anything. So we're just going to add them to this copy. G3. All right, Spike A. Spike B. And Spike C. All right, so we'll install this. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how this is all set up. So, G3C Spike. All right, so if I'm wearing... When is this? Oh, okay. It's showing up as plate mail because for whatever reason this has an identified name. This should be -1 to force it to use spiked armor. Okay. So if I'm wearing spiked armor, I am immune from G3C Spike A. So if I were to go into Enrage is going to try to cast A, which if I'm wearing the armor, this gets blocked. So B would go into effect. B is the... B basically adds the retaliation effect. The retaliation effect is C, which does the actual damage. Now, if I'm not wearing the armor, A will go into effect, and all that A does is block B. Easy enough. So if I'm wearing the armor, B goes into effect. If I'm not wearing the armor, A blocks everything. So if I'm enraging in any circumstance other than wearing this armor, nothing changes. I just get a normal straight up enrage. So I think that's it for this item. It's pretty simple. We're using that dual trick again where you cast 2 spells and all one does is block the other. It gets a little silly trying to map out what does what, but that should be our spiked armor. Let's go ahead and make the commit for this. Or just get add. Okay. Add the item to. Okay, let's add and then make our commit. Spiked armor by a.green. Yep, everything's there. There it goes. All right, so that was the spiked armor. And then now we've got the darts from Mars. So let's take a quick look at the darts. It's, what, 1120? We can probably get a couple of them. Dart of the Lethargic Soul, and is slow. Makes you immune to slow. Not usable by surface elves. Oh, that's going to be... That is going to be something a little bit harder than he probably thinks. Okay, we'll come back to that. All right, Dart of Eternal Hunger does life stealing. A chance to restore one forgotten spell slot to the wielder. They may cast Vampiric Touch. When you first equip it, it reduces Constitution by 1 point. Does an additional 1 piercing against good aligned. I think that's all doable. Okay. Well, this is... Like I said, so equipping effects go into effect every time you load a game or change areas. So this may be triggering more often than the player thinks. So that might be slightly problematic. I like what he's trying to do here. Let me think about ways we can do that so that it's not going to trip too often. Maybe make it that once per 24 hours it does that temporarily. So essentially when it happens, it'll block it from happening again for 24 hours. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. That's one way around it. All right. Dart of the Severing Mist. This is, he wants this to be a TOB item. Does piercing damage and acid damage. 5% of a vorpal hit. And it can either Caustic Shell, which is acid resistance and damages the attacker. Or we can, so it's either while it's equipped. And we can do one of two things. Okay, I think all that's doable. And all of these are returning darts. Right? Yep. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why I said this, the not usable by surface elves might be a bit of a problem, was that drow and normal elves aren't distinguished in their race fields. They're just elves. There's no... If you were to just search for the game through elves, you would get, you know, all the Soldan SLR elves as well as all the drow. These are not... There's not an easy thing to distinguish drow from surface elves. So this is a little bit more problematic. The good news is, because this is... well, let me think. Right, so who are our drow elves at the games, right? There's Baloth, there's Viconia. From mods, there's 2 different versions of Solifane. So those are kind of the 4 people that would use it. Plus, I'm sure there are other people who've added drow to the game, I'm sure. So we could make it where it's... There's 2 ways you could do it, right? You could say, you could flag it as immune to, as elves can't use it, and then make an exception for those 4. Or you could go the other way and make it usable by elves and then like explicitly disallow, like, you know, Airy. But then you have to account for every other mod NPC that might be an elf. So there's kind of no real clear-cut way to do this. So for now, I'm just going to make it usable by all elves, and then I'll ponder a better way to implement this. Because, I mean... It's an interesting, like, I like the idea behind this restriction. It's just, it's a little bit tricky to implement. So we'll do everything else on this, and then I'll think about how to do this more properly. So, I mean, like I said, you can very easily just be like, you know, no to Airy. Yeah, so, all right, so we'll think about it. But so for now, let's grab the Tartula. We'll just grab everything from this. All right, we'll come over to our items. And it's a returning dart. So let's go to, let's go back to our items. Let's find darts. So I realized this the other day when I was talking about, I haven't talked too much about the different types of headers. So far, we've just kind of been copying and pasting from other items. There are essentially five types of headers. So there's none, which doesn't do anything. The reason why this exists is because on the original game, I'm talking about the original Baldur's Gate, not even Baldur's Gate 2. On original Baldur's Gate 1, items could only stack if they had a header. So there are all sorts of non-magical things like gems and potions. Well, okay, potions are magical, but you had like gems and arrows, all had a default header of 0, even though they didn't do anything. And it was purely because this was the only way the game could have them stack. You should never need to use the default 0 header. Melee and ranged are obvious enough. Like melee is for obviously stuff like swords and axes. Ranged, now the difference between ranged and launcher, because these both do things that are similar. A launcher is for something like a bow or a crossbow, something that needs ammo. Ranged is something that is a ranged weapon in and of itself, like a dart or an axe or a throwing dagger. Magical is used for obviously like item abilities, like an item that can cast a spell, that sort of thing. So if you were to find something like the bow of Gessen, which can use its own ammo, it's got both. Right, the launcher means that you can slat, you can put arrows in it, and it will launch them just like it's a regular bow. But it also has its own ranged attack, which means it can attack without ammo. And the reason why I bring that up is because we're going to go into darts, and we're going to find one of the returning darts, like the crimson dart. This is a returning dart, yes, yeah. And it's a ranged attack. So that was just our quick little aside about item ability. So let's add a copy of this. G3C. And what is the name of this item? The Lethargic Soul. So let's just call this L Soul, not item. Okay. So we've got so by default, because we've copied it from another item, it does 3 attacks per round. It's already using a returning dart profile. Let's see, and it's +3, +3. 20% chance to slow with a save, and then we are immune to slow effects. All right, is there an item that provides immunity to slow? I mean, there's free action, but that provides immunity to tons of stuff. I don't think is there anything that just does slow by itself? Let's look through item description, see if there's anything that does immunity to slow. No. Flail of the Ages has a chance to inflict slow. Yeah, everything here is pretty much like a free action. Here we go. Mazzy's sword does. So hers is slow and stun, so we'll copy it and we'll cut out the stun stuff. So let's copy all of her equipping effects. Let's come back to our dart. Paste all these in. So, meaning to effect stun, remove that. Stun, remove. Stun, stunned. All right, we want to get rid of stunned. Slowed, we want to keep slow. Protection from spell. Yeah, that's a slow spell. Slow, slow, slow. Golem, slow, slow. We don't want the colors. Immunity to effect slow. We don't want stun. Prevent portrait icon slow. We don't want stun. And we don't need mind shield. Okay, so there's our immunity to slow. And then we want to inflict slow, from which we can grab that from the Flail of Ages. Like I said, always whenever you can, borrow it from somewhere else. It does all that damage, and then it's slow and displays string slow. So we're going to copy these effects. These do it at a slightly different percentage, so we'll have to adjust that, but it's still so much easier just to do this. All right, so he says do it at a 20%, and then there's also a save. 20% to chance slow for 2 rounds, and save versus death -2. Okay. So let's come back to our item. So first we're going to adjust the percentage from 0 to 19. It's going to last for 2 rounds, and it's going to be a save versus death at -2. All right, everything looks good. So remember, the percentage chances are inclusive, so this is 20%. If we were to set this to 20, it would actually be 21%. So it's one less than you think. So we're going to display the string slow. It's going to be on 0 to 19. We're displaying a string, so permanent is fine. I don't know why that's timing mode 9 instead of 1, but whatever. Paralyzed mode on death, and same thing. It's going to be a -2 save. All right, so that is pretty much it. Right, the start is doing. It's got +3 to hit. Does 1d3 +3 missile, and does slow. Has immune to slow. Is the normal. Like I said, the elf thing, I'm going to have to think about how to limit surface elves from using this. But otherwise, I think that's it. We're going to save, overwrite, okay. And then, oh yeah, let's do the description really quick. So let's bring this over to the tray file. I'm going to go at 1044 up, dang it. At 1044 equals boom. Heart of the Lethargic Soul at 1045 equals starting here. And yeah, we will grab the Crimson Darts description as our starting point. Because it does the same damage, 1d3 +3. And then we've already got that returns to the wielder's hand, so we need the, so we need an equipped ability. And it's going to be, let's see, we already have an immunity in here somewhere. We'll just copy that. Or actually, no, we'll grab it from the Sword of Arvarine, which is where we got it from. Grab this. And equipped abilities go first, too, apparently. So we'll do equipped abilities. Except it's just immunity to slow. And then from the Flail of Ages is where we grab the slow effect on hit. Come out abilities, 30% chance. Except it's a 20% chance of slowing the target for 12 seconds. Save versus death at -2 to negate. All right, otherwise everything else should be the same. Oh, why are we not deleting? There we go. All right, so I'm going to copy. That is 44 and 45. And what do I call it? The L Soul. This is the Dart of the Lethargic Soul. my Mars X13. Mars X13. All right, let's make sure this installs. Oh, once again, I forgot to bring it over to my... to here. All right, one more time. There we go. Let's check it in game. Go to item G3CL soul, Dart of the Lethargic Soul, immune to slow, blah blah blah. Yep, all this is good. It's got our nice immunity to slow. All right. Simply interpret that arts is usable only by evil elves. That is certainly one way we can do it. I think though, one of the weird things about making it only usable by evil elves though is that then you have the weird situation where Viconia can use it until her alignment changes in TOB if you manage to get her on that route. So that's one of the things I can think of, right? There are ways you can do it. Some of them are trade-offs. I'm going to try to think of, this will be something I'll think about this afternoon, of a way to do this that has the least amount of trade-offs. One is you could do a straight-up alignment restriction. The other one is that you can try to explicitly find non-drow elves and specifically add immunities for them. There's not, like I said, this is one of the things where there's trade-offs. It's also possible, it seems like Mars has been watching because he left a comment. The reason why I did all these edits last night was because he realized his items were coming up. So maybe Mars, when he watches this, will be like, oh, okay, well then maybe do it this way. So we'll see if Mars wants to leave a comment specifically on it. But yeah, doing an alignment restriction is certainly one option. Let me think about it, because, surface elves can be evil. So should they be allowed to use it? So, I mean, obviously, right, he probably has in mind somebody like Aerie. Like, Aerie certainly shouldn't be using this item. But, like I said, it's the main problem comes down to there's just not an easy way to distinguish drow elves versus other elves. So, but, all right, so that item is done. So, I think that phone call that popped up a little bit ago, that was my wife. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end the stream so I can call her back and see what's going on. So we're going to do our normal finally wrap up with the nightly build. So, and we'll come back to Mars's items and finish them out tomorrow. So let's commit this item. This is Dart to the Lethargic Soul. We'll use this as our commit message. All right, commit and push. All right, and now we'll do our nightly build. If we're going to change this to 10, 25, 24, we're going to come to our mod package. Change this to 10, 25. Oh, you're right, I haven't set a price. You know what, we're going to come back to all these items tomorrow, so we'll start off tomorrow setting a price. Well, actually, no, we'll do it really quick. Lib prices. Do I still have this? Oh, good, I do. And this is the G3CL Soul. Returning darts are nice. Let's see what the Crimson Dart goes for, because it's basically the Crimson Dart except even better. The Crimson Dart is +3. It goes for 1250. And really, there's nothing else comparable. So it's 1250, except it makes you immune to slow and inflicts slow. These are both really useful buffs. So let's go for... Let's double the price. Let's go for 2,500. I think that's entirely reasonable for a +3 dart with those bonuses. If the Crimson Dart is only 1,250, I think 2,500 is a reasonable price for it. All right, so let's make... All right. And wait, I did save this, right? Everything is saved. Yeah, okay. All right. There we go. Nightly versioning. Let's make our packages. All right. Come on over to GitHub, do our nightly release. Nightly 10, 25, 24, not nightly. Grab my packages. This is going to be a, oops, cancel. I was trying to click that box. There we go. Publish release, and we're all done. So, like I said, programming note, definitely no stream on Sunday. Monday stream might, I'm thinking that I'm going to push them back an hour to like 10 a.m. Just because my wife tends to have meetings at home before she goes to work, so I don't want to overlap when she's trying to have meetings and have us both talking over each other at the same time. And then plus both of us, as bad as our internet connection is, both of us trying to, she's on a Zoom call and I'm trying to do this. I don't think it's going to work well. So tomorrow we'll be back at the same time at 9 a.m. No stream on Sunday. Monday will probably be 10 o'clock, but that's tentative. So that'll be an hour later than what we've been doing this week. So, and then tomorrow we'll complete the rest of Mars's darts, and we will go from there. So thanks for joining, everybody. I will see you tomorrow, and have a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So thanks, everyone.